What if I told you, after countless hours of praying for 9-star blue sparks, slamming your TPs, waiting for the whale Uma resets, everything you have learned about inheritance farming is wrong? Hey guys, UmaPokke here, and today I want to share with you Torenas a tip that I myself only recently picked up a couple of days ago as of the time of this recording, once again showing how umamusume has a massive iceberg of information hidden from the general public. I was exactly like you, looking up guides on inheritance farming and how to cycle for the perfect 9-star Uma on power and stamina, as well as the medium spark for the pings so we can prepare for a stronger raised Uma eventually. But everything I learned about inheritance was completely shattered because of a single incident here. Take a look at my super creek over here. If you were me, what would you do with this super creek? A. Straight to the glue factory. B. Play Goo babies with her. Or C. Wait for UmaPokke. Now, usually I would have instantly glued her with my understanding of the game within the first couple of weeks, but this super creek literally changed my life as well as the perception on the entire inheritance farming system, and I think 99% of the player base may have completely missed out on this concept.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
So the main problem with inheritance farming that most people do not really get, at least for the past couple of weeks, is that my entire goal for inheritance farming was to farm for that perfect 9-star stamina or power, just as pretty much every single guide and reference has mentioned, to make them a universal parent, and you can pretty much just go ahead and train your horses to have a better quality from there. To a large extent, this is absolutely true, because getting your very first 9-star stamina or power makes it a lot easier to raise your other horses, eventually getting your 18 stars to pretty much farm any potential you want for a lot of different scenarios, specializing them with unique skills going forward based on the upcoming CM and how the content is gonna be like. The biggest issue about this was there is an extremely high chance of failure, as I'm sure all of you are aware by now. Assuming you did the most efficient possible way of farming with the Quadra 600 stats, at least 600 on every single stats but guts, you had a 5% chance of getting a 3-star on each individual stat. If you didn't mind which 4 stats, that's gonna be 4% excluding the guts. But if you specifically want the only stamina and power, there's only a 2% chance of hitting what you want, which would be the final product for most Umas. This meant that statistically, not only are you limiting your initial 3 borrows a day with a baseline 3-star power or stamina, you are literally having worse odds than the actual Uma gacha at 3% SSR rates. Then on top of that, you also ideally want a distance rate spark, because the pace strategy as well as turfing, they are far less important comparatively speaking. If that's going to be the case, no wonder people will crash out after trying for 100 career runs and not seeing a single 3-star stamina power. So every single one of your TP that you have invested in this endeavor, they are pretty much completely wasted. For context, my own account has more than 250 career runs at this point of time, and I still have not gotten a single 3-star stamina. Sorry, future UmaPokke here. Yeah, I just got my 3-star stamina yesterday, so won't cry about it. With a single 3-star power spark in my entire deck, I've gotten 2 3-star speed and 1 3-star wit at the side, but at the end, they are neither as useful for an Uma that I want to pass down to my future generations. Looking at this in hindsight, my previous 3-star runs, which were all obtained with the standard farming route of training a normal race Uma and then pray to God it lands on the 600 stat, which is the most inefficient way of farming by the way, meaning I didn't do enough G1s, which meant less compatibility as well as skills inherited for the Uma itself from the lack of skill points. This eventually brought me to my realization of probably the most important, you could say is the most evil inheritance tip of them all, and I wish someone had brought this up to me since day one. Introducing white farming. Okay, wait, no, that sounds kind of a little bit racist. Farming the whites. Wait, white hunting. Okay, you know what? Forget it. You get the idea, right? White farming is basically the idea that you ignore the blues and the reds and focus your priority on only the white sparks of an Uma, opting from both the G1 races as well as their individual skills. So the concept for this is very straightforward, right? And this is why white farming is going to be so important, because you want to use these Umas despite having bad blues and pinks, which are honestly just pretty much all of them praying to RNG. You can actually use these white farming Umas Umas into your great-grandparents. If you were to use these Umas for your great-grandparents, what is essentially gonna happen is that for your eventual grandparent, they have a very high chance of actually inheriting the white skills for themselves. So for example, I have two of these potential white farming Umas that I've actually procured for the past couple of runs, one being a Super Cree as well as another one being Nice Nature. Notice how both of them, they have pretty much completely garbage blue as well as pinks, running a 1-star guts as well as a 1-star speed with a 3-star pace chaser and 2-star pace chaser respectively. But what I do have on the other hand is that both of them has very good amount of whites, a lot of which are pretty universal, as well as being able to use them for the upcoming champions meet. On top of this, both of them have pretty much ran almost the exact same racetrack, which also builds up towards our compatibility score, allowing pretty much any Uma that's gonna be running medium or long getting the double circle compatibility. This means that with this increased compatibility, it is gonna be having a much higher likelihood of your brand new grandparent Uma having the chance to inherit these different white sparks during the 2 different inheritance events for your career. To better help you guys understand this situation, I'm gonna show you guys this little diagram over here, which I think is gonna break this down a lot easier. So one of 2 things are gonna happen. You either get a 3-star blue or pink spark that you desire, or you did not get a 3-star blue or pink spark that you desire. If you didn't manage to get it, then your grandparent would be complete, right? So this is the help of your 2 great grandparents which you have performed white farming with, and now that you got the 3-star blue and pink, you can then finish up one set of this grandparent to eventually raise up for your parent. So once you repeat this process enough, you can then farm for parents once both grandparents are complete, or you can just use your friend's whale Uma to get yourself a lot easier. Now, however, if you did not get the 3-star blue or pink spark, which most likely is going to be the case because like I mentioned, if you're only aiming for stamina or speed, that's only going to be a 2% chance, and if you want a medium on top of that, that's going to be probability even lower, right? So if you have a worse white sparks than the previous 2 older great grandparents, then unfortunately they are glue, so just send them away, right? It is what it is. But if you do have a better white spark than your 2 older great grandparents, replace the great grandparent that has the worst white sparks. So now you're gonna perform white farming once again, but with 2 great grandparents Umas that have a combined total of a better white sparks between both of them. And if you were to repeat this process long enough, eventually what is gonna happen is, despite all of the TPs that you have been using, you are making progress towards a better and better white spark great grandparent, which eventually is gonna let you get the 3-star blue or pink that you want. And the moment you hit that step, you can graduate into the grandparents. The alternative is that if you do not perform white farming, is that every single time you are gonna be wasting a chance where you did not get blue or pink, all of those Umas that did not do white farming is essentially going straight to the glue factory, because you did not gain the right aptitude, you did not gain the right compatibility, and you did not gain the right white sparks. Whereas if you were to perform white farming, even if you fail, you can proceed to this process over here in which you are going to reduce the amount of TP that you're actually wasting for your inheritance farming process, which at the end of the day is still going to take weeks if not months of slamming your resources being a good Torina, because inheritance is a very long process. What I do want to aim to do for Torinas is that you're going to reduce the amount of wastage. Now I do want to point out, even though this sounds absolutely insane, there is one group of people that should probably not start using this white farming method, which is you do not have the stats required to pass races with your shitty great grandparents genes, because like I mentioned, doing white farming means that you don't really care which of these blue or pink sparks actually land for these great grandparents, which means chances are your stats for this white farming run is gonna be very bad, right? You're not gonna be getting your 9-star stamina, you're not getting your 9-star power. So during the actual farming run for a grandparent here, using the white farming method, you are probably gonna need a better support cards in order to circumvent the lack of stats required. If you're still gonna be failing a race, then this entire run is basically completely pointless. So only attempt this if you can know for a fact you can still clear URA career while having lesser quality of a blue as well as pink sparks from your 2 great grandparents. Or if you just simply do not have enough time, you want to directly farm for your parents, you can just borrow your whales Umas, then this method is not going to be as relevant as well. So with that being established, speaking of like how can you make sure that you have enough proper stats to clear the race, this is going to be the deck that I'm using for all of my white farming sparks. So for every single white farming run, you kind of want to focus on the skills that you would like. In this case, I kind of have the objective to focus on the upcoming champions meet, so this is gonna be our end game, which means one of the cards that's pretty much non-negotiable and you can just borrow from a whale friend is going to be umamusume, right? Umamusume is a pretty much an all-purpose white skill farmer. You are gonna have every single important skill that can be used with almost every single race. This can be used for CM as well as even your normal normal team trials. In the future, when the Chenmi is gonna change into another Chenmi, because the skills on umamusume are pretty universal, you can always just slam this in for any sort of white spark farming. Other than that, you can step in a sweep Tosho for the slipstream, and everything else is gonna be based on your CMs. So for example, the Taurus card is gonna be Sunny, Firm, Left-handed, as well as Standard Distance. So you kind of want to just get every single one of these white skills from this supporting card. So for example, Satoru Diamond is gonna give you quite a little bit. I'm gonna be running Hishim Amazon as well as Narita because I want to farm for a gold ship, which means I'm gonna be going for the end closers. For those of you guys who are going for late surgers or pace chasers or front runners, use the card respectively. For the left-handed, Silent Suzuka's SSR is pretty much one of the only ones that can give you left-handed. So just go ahead and slam that. And then one last thing is gonna be going for the medium corners or medium straightaways, which is gonna be from our weird card Agnes Taikion over here. Now you might be wondering, because this deck is looking to be pretty specific for this current CM, what about the future CM? And that is sort of the beauty of white farming, which is even if you were to wait for the future CM, which means you technically need to refarm everything once again, everyone else will be doing the exact same thing. Except for players that can do the white farming strategy, you can bring forward all of these white skills from your great grandparents to any grandparents you want in the future, because at the end of the day, once you inherit the white skills as a spark for the parents itself, then you can pretty much just secure this as a permanent placement for all of the future generations to come. There is not a limit to any white skills you have. There's pretty much whether or not you can even get them in the first place. Now that you have settled your deck building, then all it comes down to is how the run is going to be conducted, which is pretty much exactly the same as a normal Spark Uma run, but you're going to be hunting for the white skills via the hints in your decks, as well as completing the necessary G1 races. So for example, Arma Kina is actually going to give you the Spring Runner, some of the other races will give you the Standard Distance, Firm, or some of the skills, this is going to be completely RNG, but just doing and trying to win those G1s is going to be crucial. You can kind of see this a little bit like our Evil Nature guide, which are not really going for the high stats over here. You're just going to be going for the baseline 600, at least in stamina and power, right? This is going to be the important ones, but in the meantime, you're also trying to gain as many white skills as possible. So focusing on a lot of races as much as you can win them to get their respective skill points, as well as the potential to get their hints as well, to increase your library of white skills. And eventually, if you're able to get the sparks for the blue or the pink, then fantastic. But if you're not able to get them, at least you have another run of gambling, which is to get the white sparks that you personally want for this great grandparents. So eventually, if you're gonna be able to do this, the expected result is gonna be seen from these two super crit as well as the nice nature over here. I did my best to get them to 600 across every single one. Unfortunately, my this super crit kind of left 8 away from the stamina, but I went for 1-star guards anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But even though we did not land on any of the stamina or speed power sparks for blue, and we didn't even land on medium, because I have farmed for my white sparks, I can still recycle them as my great grandparents for my future grandparents, so that all of these TP, it is technically not fully wasted. And to end off this entire video, perhaps one of the biggest reasons why white farming is something that everybody should be considering is that instead of purely relying on your support decks to give you the white skills you want, you can use these great grandparents as well as grandparents to also give you the white skills. So for example, if you do have a Uma such as this nice nature over here that already has a built-in playtime is over, the straightaway recovery, Japan derby, all the kind of stuff, you technically no longer need a support card that gives you playtime is over, because you can simply get them from these inheritance Umas themselves. Not only do you gain white skills from your cards, you also gain them from your Umas. So the more white sparks that your great grandparents Umas and eventually grandparents Uma have, the less of a restriction you're gonna be having when it comes to deck building for both your inheritance farming as well as the eventual final ace farming. Now this is like looking super going ahead in the future, because at the end of the day, farming for inheritance is still gonna be a process that requires a lot of time. Even though I said all these things, at the end of the day, it is ultimately up to RNG. You can do the exact same run, sometimes you just gain like no white sparks or like 1 or 2 white sparks, so it's still gonna be a brick run. But eventually, because umamusume is a probability game, this will at least reduce your probability of wasting your TP while eventually building towards and make it feel like all of these TP that you've spent is working towards something, right? You're progressing towards something at the end of the day. With that, I have come to the end of the most evil tip for inheritance farming. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below for this method, because at the end of the day, I'm just sick and tired of slamming all of my TPs to get absolutely 0 returns, because the moment I did not get a blue or pink, it is completely wasted. At least with this white farming method, even if you're not getting the blue and pinks you want, you can still make something out of it if you get a run that gives you a ridiculous amount of white sparks to then recycle them from the grandparents into the parents, right? So that's pretty much all I have for today. All the best of your umapoos, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Mambo, mambo, お祭りマンボウ、わっしゃいマンボウ、お祭りマンボウ。 ザブザブ、ゆらゆら、お祭りマンボウ